My first day out after 24 years in prison. What a whirlwind. What's cracking, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. New video. I get asked a lot, what was it like? What was my first day like? What was my last day in prison like? What was my first week out of prison like? And so today I wanted to go ahead and touch on my first day out. I feel like I did this video before, I just don't remember. And so for those of you that have been asking me, here we go. It's not an easy topic. It's not an easy subject. It's not like a simple subject. We have to go back to, from a very young age, I made a decision that the rules of society didn't apply to me. That I was going to live by my own set of rules and those rules of the streets. And so by me making that decision and choosing to live by those laws and those rules, I put myself in a position to be incarcerated for the majority of my life. Starting at a young age, starting at 13. And back then, every time I went to jail, juvenile hall, camp, whatever it was, when I got out knowing I was going right back. Well, not really in camp. I escaped from camp. So they didn't let me out. I escaped twice. But anytime I did go to jail when I was a kid, when I got out knowing I'm going right back. I knew from a young age I was going to go to prison. My mind was made up that I was going to kill for my neighborhood. And all of these things that I believed in became my reality. And that's why at the age of 19, I was picked up for a murder, having only been out for 5 months after doing 3 years in the California Youth Authority. And when I was picked up for my murder, I was okay with it because it was part of who I was going to be, who I was destined to be because of my belief system. The day they surrounded my pad, the day the task force raided to come and get me and arrest me, when they put the handcuffs on me, I knew in my heart without any doubt that I would never see the streets again. That I was done with the streets. I was 19 years old and I knew I had a long road ahead in prison, that I was going to die in prison. It was just, how was the death going to happen? That was it. And again, I was okay with it because this is what I believed was part of being a gangster, right? So I went to prison and I got involved in the reindeer games, the violence, the politics, the manipulation, the treachery, the brutality. Everything that comes with being in prison, especially in a California prison, California State Prison, level 4, 180 maximum security prisons. And, it's unfortunate for those of you that don't know, California's prison system runs by points. It's a point system. And once there's certain, if you get a certain amount of points, you're, level 1, then level 2, level 3, level 4. And I believe level 4 is like 54 points. And after doing 24 years and about 2 weeks in prison, I paroled with still over 100 points. Because of things that I had done in there where, I had stacked my points up, and I had a few years where I didn't get any more write-ups. I didn't get any more 115s, and your points are supposed to drop every year, right? But when I was found suitable for parole, see, in California, it's nothing like the movies. It isn't like, okay, you have 20 to life, which is what I had, but at 20 years, you can go home. No, in California, you have to be seen by a psychologist prior to going to the board. You have to be seen by a psychologist. And the psychologist is evaluating your threat level to society if you were to be released. And so you're going to have a 4 or 5 hour interview with a psychologist. And that psychologist is going to do things to try to trigger you. I'll give you an example. So I had the first time I went to board, the psychologist was talking to me. And while he was talking to me, he kept eating a muffin. And at one point, and I'm sitting pretty close to him. We're not sitting across a big table or anything. We're sitting pretty much side by side facing each other. And he asked me a question and took a bite out of his muffin and then coughed the muffin on me. Okay. And a lot of times in prison, if somebody does that, somebody's gonna be like, hey man, what are you doing? Okay. That's a violent reaction. That's your natural reaction to that situation and is going to get you a high assessment of threat level to society. Now, if I was already aware of what was going to happen, and so when he coughed on me and the food landed on me, I was like, are you okay? I just, brushed it off. Are you okay? You need some water? Like, what's wrong? You all right? That's what a normal person in society does. So anyways, you see a psychologist. The psychologist is going to give his recommendation, either low, moderate, or high level, threat level to society. If you have a high, you ain't going nowhere. Moderate, you can go home. Low, you're more than likely going home. Then you go before the board, and you're going to have a hearing. It could be 6 hours long, 8 hours long. It just depends on your file and your answers. And the first one is always going to be the longest because they're setting that's their measuring stick, right? If they don't plan on letting you go home on that first one, they're putting everything in place to see the growth your next time around, to compare. Okay. So then you have your parole hearing. And if you were found suitable, but you have a body, you have a murder, then the governor is going to review. And the governor can say, nah, I'm taking this date. This guy's not going anywhere. Okay. So I had gone my second time to board. I had gone and I had a hearing, and I knew within the first probably 10 minutes, it was clear to me that these guys are really seriously thinking about letting me go home. And it was one simple thing where when you go into your board hearing, they're going to say, okay, this is what's going to happen today and this and this and that. And they're going to say, we're all going to one by one introduce ourselves for the record. And he said, we're also going to hear what the district attorney from Santa Barbara has to say about you going home today. When he said that, he didn't say you possibly getting found suitable, but he said going home today. They don't slip like that. When I heard that, I knew in my mind, don't fuck this up. So I had my hearing, and it was a very fast hearing, and I knew, wow. And the DA himself even, surprisingly, and he said, I've never done this before, but I'm not going to oppose this hearing. I'm not going to oppose him going home. And so I was found suitable for parole. And I remember when I went back, when I went into my building and I went to the day room, people were telling me I had a glow. Damn, fool. They were like, look at you. Of course, I was smiling. I couldn't stop smiling. I was happy. But did I really believe I was going home? I didn't. The point was that I had convinced people that were members of society, that are supposed to be pillars in society. I convinced those people that I was no longer the person I was when I entered prison. that I had figured out who I really am and who I was always supposed to be. I was able to convince these people. I was able to convince the psychologist because I had figured out who I am. And so that in itself was the gift. If they let me out is extra. But I had done the hard work of being accepted by people that reside in society and not in prison. That was important. So I was waiting. The governor has 30 days in order to decide if he's going to let you go home or not. And then I get the news, right? Hey, come down here and sign your paperwork. And I went to the counselor's office and I was informed that the governor had decided not to do anything with it, so I was going to be going home. And even then, I didn't believe I was going home. I also want to say I was banned. For the first 6 months, I was banned from Santa Barbara County, the entire county. Because you have to remember my victim's family, and there were 5 of them. You know, everybody always talks about the one. There was 5 guys that came to put in work on my neighborhood. And one of them I killed. And I have to be honest, when I look back on that night, I wanted to kill all of them. I did. The person I was back then felt offended that these people came into my neighborhood and had the audacity to not be afraid. And when the guns came out, then it was, oh shit, we got to get out of here. But all of my victims lived in Santa Barbara County. But another thing to remember is all of my co-defendants cooperated. I was the only one that didn't cooperate. And that's why I was facing the death penalty until I won a 995 motion and got it thrown out. So all of my crimes were in Santa Barbara County, and my victims' families and the other guys that survived, that made it through that night, they're all here. Okay. And they all had concerns about me coming home. And so I was paroled to San Diego. But the first day out, man, I remember them saying, hey, it's time to go. And I had already gave away all my stuff, right? And I remember going to R&R. Receiving and release is what R&R is. I went to receiving and release, and they gave me my dress outs. And I had some, I had some black slacks, some black dress shoes, a white button-up shirt with a black tie. And I had an idea, I didn't want to be dressing the way I dressed before. I wanted to be presentable because I already have a lot of luggage, a lot of baggage, right? And I remember in R&R, I remember getting dressed thinking they're going to pick up some old case on me. So the marshals are going to come for me. Something's going to happen. But I got dressed and I waited. Then they opened up the cage that I was in, the cell and R&R that I was in, and the guys next to me it was me and one dude, paroling. It was a wood from Santa Maria that was paroling. And we get on a van together and we're driving to where our people can pick us up. Even then, I didn't believe it. Got out of the van, got in the car. At the time I was married, I got in the car with my wife, gave her a kiss, and she said, where do you want to go? I said, let's go get me a phone. We went, and we're off into the world. Now, this is anticlimactic or anticlimactic, however the word is, because Me making those decisions at a young age to not want to be a part of society, to basically say F the world. You know, they say that time stands still for no one. That's absolutely incorrect. Time stands still for those who get incarcerated. See, I had gotten busted in 1993. I got busted in 1989 and then got out in 1993 for 5 months. And then in 1993, I went back in, caught the life sentence. I didn't get back out until 2017. And all I knew was if you told me a story about the streets and I would try to like be involved in your story, I only knew 1993. It didn't matter what I saw on my TV. I didn't experience that. I only knew 1993. My last time out was 1993. The way the cars looked, the way my city looked. Like, I remember I would talk to my little homeboys and I would tell them, yeah, you know, this, that. And they would laugh. I said, what the fuck are you laughing at? And they were like, that shit hasn't been there forever. So I only knew what I knew when I was out in 1993. And I got out and I saw the world had definitely moved on. It had grown, it had changed. But I was excited to be a part of it. I'll tell you that I got my phone. I started calling family. And we drove to San Diego. And back then they would give us, you know, some people got a week. I paroled on a Friday. And so I got the weekend to spend with family, which was my wife at the time. And we went and got a hotel and whatever. And then on, I think it was Sunday, I had to go back, or Monday. I don't remember. And I remember going back, and now I'm in San Diego. I'm in the transitional home. They had a building specifically for ex-lifers. They had actually two. We had two buildings. It was an apartment complex, a whole complex. And two of the buildings were for the lifers, ex-lifers, and the rest were like, you know, regular cats. And they were doing like a drug program there or something. I don't know. And something funny about all of us ex-lifers that were out, we all yelled into our phone. We were in prison and we would talk on the phones in the day room, and we would talk just the way I'm talking to you. But for some reason, when we were out, all of us, we would get on the cell phones and hey, what's up, man? And we would yell. We would yell on the phone. And we would always laugh at the other guy like, hey, fucking loud ass dude over there. But we didn't know we were doing the same thing. When I paroled, my dad had bought me a car. And I had to get my social security card, an ID, and all this stuff. And then I took my driving test, And let me tell you something. I had never had a license before prior to prison, right? And so when I went to take my test, I remember everybody telling me, go to Chula Vista. Take it there. They're way more cool. But it's packed, right? So I go, boom, set everything up, you know, make my appointment, and I show up. And the lady gets in the car with me. And I knew there was going to be a problem because she was upset with her coworker about something that had happened. And I'm standing there and she's arguing with her coworker in front of everybody. And then she turned around and she goes, let's go, right? And I was like, hey, you want me to reschedule? Because I knew she was mad, right? I was like, you want me to reschedule? Because I was like, she's definitely going to fail me. And she was like, no, let's go. So we get in the car. And I get in the car. She does the walk around and she does the whole thing. And then she gets in the car and she was like, okay, let's go. So I'm at 10 and 2, you know, the handlebar, the steering wheel, and we take off. And then she's like, okay, park here. And she starts riding. She's like, okay, take off. And she starts riding. And she had written, it seemed like 3 things already, right? And we were at a stoplight. And I looked at that woman and I said, look, I don't know what you're writing on that paper. Bear in mind, we had only been driving for about 5 minutes and she had already wrote 3 things, right? And so when we're at the stoplight, I said, look, I don't know what you're writing on that paper. But I just got out of prison after doing 24 years. And a driver's license will give me an opportunity to work, to get to and from work, and get a good start on getting back into society. If I don't get this driver's license, I'm not going to fail, but it's going to be a lot harder for me. This is what she did. She looked at me and did that with her pen. And she goes, go back to the DMV. I go back and all the lifers I had brought, it was a carload of us that had brought 3 other lifers. And when I pulled back in and she got out of the car and they're like, yeah, you did that, right? She gave me the thing, and I don't know how many infractions you can have to where you fail. I was 1 away. In 5 minutes, I was 1 away. And like I said, I knew when she was arguing with her coworker that I was going to fail because she was so mad that she wasn't having it for anybody that day. And instead, when I spoke to that woman, I think she checked herself like, hopefully she checked herself like, why am I about to ruin this guy's chance because I'm mad at my coworker? And after that, man, I got my little, I got my license and stuff. And San Diego, I love San Diego, man. I have so many good memories in that city, in that county. I would load up my car, man, full of lifers. All convicted killers. And we would just roll all around SD. We'd be at the beaches. We'd be downtown, the South. We were everywhere, man. And we used to say, fucking, imagine if the cops pull us over and run our damn names. There's 100 years in this car of incarceration. There's 150 years of incarceration in this car based on who was in the car with me, right? All of us, convicted killers. A second chance at life. Smiling. We were happy as kids in a candy shop, man. And not one of us has returned to prison. Every time a new lifer would get out, they would be like, hey, Holmes, another vato just got here. Because we would only do, a certain amount of time there, and then you go to a house. They had the apartment complex, then there was a few different homes that they ran, and then you were on your own. And they would call me, hey, somebody else just came. And I would pull up. Hey, Holmes, what's your name? You just got out? You feel like eating? And I would always take them to Tacos El Gordo. And I would tell them, hey, if you need a ride tomorrow, I got you, Holmes. You're going to go to Go Staff. Go Staff was a temp agency. I had one of the main dudes, I had his phone number. And I would call him, hey, Holmes, I got a dude. He's like, bring him tomorrow. And I would take the new lifers to Go Staff. And they would fill out their paperwork. And then the next morning, they had a job. It was such a it was hard for us. But it was such a fucking blessing, man. We would go to these construction sites. We would go wherever they sent us, warehouse jobs, whatever it was, man. And we would outwork all of these cats that had been on the streets their whole lives. We would be grateful for the work that we were given while listening to everybody else complain. So many people that have never forfeited their freedom, because don't get me wrong, we gave our freedom up. We made decisions that we didn't give a fuck about society. We gave a fuck about ourselves. And at the end of the day, we didn't even do that. That's why we're willing to kill, die, or go to prison for the rest of our lives. But for those that have been out here their whole lives, man, I hear the things that you complain about. And I really try to wrap my head around it, but it's hard for me. I understand that you guys only know what you know. And I'm glad you don't know what I know. But I wish that you would be more optimistic and understand. In prison, if something goes wrong, if you're having a bad day in prison, you could wind up having to kill somebody, or you could wind up getting killed. When you're having a bad day out here in society, maybe you have to pay a credit card bill a little bit late, or your rent a little bit late, or your boss is going to write you up, but you still have that job, right? I have a different gauge. I've talked about it in a lot of other videos. But anyways, this video is a lot longer than I ever do. I know the truckers, shout out to all the truckers. They always want me to do longer videos. But I don't want to go too long. Before I go, I want to shout out those that donated last night. I did a live at midnight last night, you guys. And Jess the Barber, Agustin Ramos, Fire Crutch, and No Town. Thank you guys very much, man, for popping in on me at midnight and being a part of the channel, supporting the channel. Thank you to everyone that watches all my videos. Let's try to get this video, because this is a video that I know some people have been asking for, but it probably won't do that well. So I want to set a goal for 1,000 likes, man. And those of you that made it this far in the video, put freedom in the comment section. I appreciate you guys, man. Everybody, please be safe, be smart, and tell the ones you love that you love them, man. I'm out of here.